Tums.
Get my stomach growling.
Walk-up music.
Yeah, what do you want your walk-up song to be?
How about we can play Eagles Take It Easy, since we just saw them last weekend.
Yeah, we just saw
Wait,
them
did you
in
go to Vegas?
That's
Yeah, we saw them.
Was it amazing?
Oh
It
my
was
God.
absolutely amazing.
Oh man.
So I want to go there so badly. And like I was looking at different dates. I was telling Kenny Mintz, I texted him. I said we got to go see this together in Vegas.
The Eagles, we brought Keegan and Jill and Lexi, and Lexi like pulled out the playlist before, and she was just like, because I was like, guys, we're going to see the Eagles, and they are music people, so they knew them. And then Lexi was even like, God, I didn't realize that I know all of the songs. But then Keegan was so amazed. He was like, these dudes are 77 years old. I mean, Vince Gill isn't. And then they brought on Glenn Fry's son, Deacon Fry. But with them singing and everything, it was just an incredible concert.
It's definitely. I mean, for us, the Eagles, that at least for me, maybe not Holly so much, but it was a bucket list. I mean, that's
when they're
77. They're 77 years old.
California.
Yeah,
it had to be amazing. Sound the same.
It sounded.
They're playing through April. I saw like
they added 2 more shows.
Yeah,
so
I want to go so bad to see that. I missed you
not
too.
Too
obviously,
get out there.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So it looks.
And I will tell you, Jamie, there's not a bad seat in the house.
Yeah.
Wherever you get.
Yeah, wherever you get, there's not a bad seat in the house. I mean, we were in the 300 section, which meant the stage. We were not getting close-ups of the band, but that doesn't matter because they always show them up on the video, and then
and all of the other lights. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're live now. So welcome to the OGP podcast. Mark and Holly West, our esteemed classmates. You're the MVP couple of the class of 1991. So you chose as your walk-off song, Take It Easy. I can't play it live anymore because we'll get shut down.
Okay.
But I'm going to just put it for the walk-up for this. And it's actually appropriate because it's the second time we have that as a walk-up song because Kenny Mintz chose that. And this is your second podcast. We're actually having you back live on the Old Grad podcast after 6.5 years. It was 6.5 years ago, only podcast number 3. We were trying to put it together when it was. It was in 2018 that we started this podcast. This is 2025. We're in our 7th year, which is crazy. And so welcome, Mark and Holly. Thank you for joining me.
And Jamie, it's kind of fitting because I said I have gone back and looked at that podcast once. And if you remember, that was a video podcast, like a true video, because you were with us. It wasn't a Zoom. And I've looked back on it and I said, it probably could have been on SNL 50th anniversary. It was pretty funny.
It was funny. It was funny. I remember you were like the Wi-Fi, you're like telling I think Kyle and Daisy, like, shut off the Wi-Fi, quit playing the games. Yeah.
We're just gonna drink a beer. It was funny.
Yeah.
It was a great event. And it's been, I mean, thinking about, 7 years, it just goes by like that. Think about 7 years.
Yeah.
That was the entire time of West Point. And for some of us, the time that we were in the Army too.
Right.
I mean, it was that long ago that we've been doing this Old Grad podcast.
Right. You were running a triathlon that day.
That's right. I was going through a series of events leading up to my 50th birthday.
Yeah, they call it a midlife crisis, Jamie. That's okay.
That's if you're gonna have that's not a bad one to have. That's not a bad way to have it. I'm having another one again now because my wife and I are running the New York City half marathon on March 16th.
Nice.
Yeah, and definitely hurting because I had a long run yesterday. So
well, I'm sitting here drinking bourbon, so I'll toast to you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm on the wagon. I'm drinking seltzer water. I'm on the wagon until March 16th.
All right.
Good time to come off of it because it's going to be St. Patty's Day, so we're going to definitely be celebrating.
Perfect timing.
And Claire's going to run it with us too, but Claire's obviously going to crush us.
Yeah.
She ran the marathon back in November, and Pam and I were like cheering her on, we're like so inspired. We're like, let's do this. Let's run. We could run the half marathon. We could do that. We trained for it. Seemed like a good idea at the time. It is, now we're struggling to get the miles in. So
Yeah, that was Mark and I watched a marathon, watch my brother run a marathon back in actually it was like 2000 and the 2000 to 2001. So at the fall of 2001 or the January 2001, he ran the Disney. We watched him, and it was the first time Mark and I had ever watched a marathon. And back then we were like 30 years old, and we got done, and I was like, that wasn't very impressive. I think we're in better shape than all those people. So then we decided, well, we can run a marathon. And so we looked to see where the closest one was, and it was in Nashville in 4 months. And so we decided let's run the Nashville Marathon. We were in grad school, and so we ran the Nashville Marathon end of April, and then we never ran one since. We were like, that's good.
Check
so
that
one and
box.
done, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I'm one and done too. I ran it when I was a cadet, and I thought about it, but I'm not doing another one.
No, once you do one, I'm good.
Yeah, it's too far to run.
Yeah.
Not built for it,
The half is good and 10 miles is good. I've done that, but the marathon just destroyed it. I felt like I couldn't run for like 3 months after. My legs just would move.
Yeah, yeah. I'll be happy. I'm not going to run another half marathon that's not my plan. I'm done with this one. So, but Mark and Holly, welcome again. I mean, so you are still living in the West Point area. Last time we talked on the Old Grad podcast, you were living on post. Holly, you were still serving as in the superintendent for the superintendent Caslin, I think, at the time. Yep. We've had 2 other superintendents since then. So Tom, give me the here and now. What are you doing? Where are you living? What's the situation with the kids and family?
Yep. So I retired in 2021. And I got a job actually before I retired, didn't know what I was going to do. And John Robb, our classmate, called me in February of 21 and said, hey, I've got something for you. And I had kind of been telling everybody, I'm not going to work in New York City. I'm not going to work in corporate America. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wasn't going to do those 2 things. And so I said, oh, great, John, where is it? And he's like, well, it's working for a private equity firm in New York City. And I was like, nope, not doing it. And so he's like, well, I already told them that I would introduce you. So now you got to do me a favor. And I was like, okay. And at that point, our kids were dating. So I was like, okay, I might as well do them a favor and talk to them. And so I started talking to them. And lo and behold, it was about 3-4 months later. Funny story is when they finally called to offer me the job, it was 2 days before my daughter was graduating from West Point. So Keegan had graduated in 2019. Lexi was graduating in 2021. And so we had a lot of people coming into the house, but I was literally on the way out the door to go pick up Keegan, to pick him up from the airport. He was coming in from Fort Riley, Kansas. And I was taking him directly to the jeweler to pick out the ring so that he could ask Jill Robb, John's daughter, to marry him. And so they called me and said, hey, Holly, this is Neil from Kimmeridge. Is now a good time? And I was like, no, it's not. And he was like, well, we want to offer you the job. And I'm like, hey, that's great, but this isn't a good time. So they called me back on Monday and offered me the job, and I took it. And so I didn't start. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, so Keegan is married to Jill, and Jill is the daughter of our classmate John Robb and Pat. Is that her name, Pat?
Patricia,
yeah. And so we have 91 royalty, basically. You have a granddaughter. Right?
Now we have 91 spawn, right? 91 royalty spawn, because they've got a granddaughter. Ellie is and there's a term for after the wedding, someone told me in my office that there is a Yiddish term. He's Jewish, and he said there's a Yiddish term for the relationship between the Robs and the Wests and the 2 in-laws, and that's called machatunim. And so they are our machatunim. And in the Jewish religion, they say that if you don't put a name to a relationship, then the relationship won't foster as well as it could. So that's why you have in-laws, or, you know, you name these relationships. And so now our relationship is, we're much attuned.
So did the Robs know that the question was going to be popped? Like, did Keegan go to them and say, I'm going to ask your daughter? Like, did you all know like when it was going to happen, or was it like a surprise? How'd that all go down?
So they knew, and it actually happened on the weekend that I was retiring, because
It was
Jill,
convenient because everybody was coming in.
everybody was coming in. And so John and Patricia were already planning to come in for my retirement. Keegan was already planning to come in for the retirement. Jill did not come in for Lexi's graduation, because she had just graduated from college herself. And so she had never really seen West Point because John didn't live here. In fact, this might have been one of the very first times she had come. So he said, why don't you come in for my mom's retirement? So she came in, and lo and behold, and Keegan asked me, he said, do you mind if I ask her to marry you over your retirement? And I'm like, I don't care at all. So I retired on Friday, and then I gained a daughter-in-law on Saturday. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's incredible.
So we were all there. John and Patricia and Mark and I were hiding behind a car. Like, I had to kind of set it up, helped Keegan set it up. A friend of mine was randomly walking across Trophy Point, taking pictures of her kids, and Keegan saw her and was like, oh, Mrs. Haley, will you just take a picture of Jill and me at Trophy Point? Because they were trying to take a selfie with their cell phone. And Debbie was like, oh, of course I will. So right when she when she took the picture, Keegan dropped down on the knee, and John and Patricia and Mark and I were hiding behind a car. So we got to see the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And Mark, how about you? You're still.
So while she's off joining private equity firms as the head of talent, I'm still coaching football. I've been in the same head coaching position with Sprint Football. It used to be 150s back in our day, since 2008. And yeah, we just came off an undefeated season this past year, beat Navy twice in the same year, and something that hadn't been done in quite some time. So I still love what I'm doing, and yeah, we'll see how much longer I do this. But right now, it's a lot of fun beating Navy, that's for sure.
When you say you'll see how much longer you do this, like what would change that? I mean, you got this awesome situation, and you're coaching your son, right? Your second son.
Yeah, that's true. My second son, and Kyle was the starting quarterback this year, so that made it all the more special to get really a front row seat to watch him do his thing, and he had a really good year.
Didn't he get honored too as like a league?
Yeah, he was first team all league quarterback this year. He led the league in passing and touchdowns, and yeah, he's pretty good. He got the height gene. We laugh. He got
is
the height
so
gene.
big. I don't know how he's making weight.
Yeah, he's gonna have to work hard at it this year. He's about 6'1", and he's pushing about 190 right now, and you got to get to 178, for the games. So he'll have a little bit of weight to cut, but no, it's been a great ride so far. And I've been doing this for going on 17 years, and we'll see how it goes. My current contract, put it that way, my current contract expires in 3 years, so I'll do some soul searching after that and decide.
I know all your kids, and all your kids are wonderful kids. Like, I think I know them all, but at different points, but because Kyle and Claire are classmates and friends, I probably know Kyle the best, right? And
right.
And so Kyle's the one who I think has the most swagger, the most like confidence. He
does. He's the third child of four, and so obviously a middle child, and yeah, he has that swagger about him that the other kids just don't have. I think they're a little envious of him because of that. He's the kid that's going to challenge his mom and dad more than the others for whatever reason, probably because he's the middle child, the forgotten child, right? But no, it's been a blast coaching him and watching him mature and develop and become not only a good quarterback, but just a leader on the team. Now that he's going into his junior year, he's really taken on that role, for the offense. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to another season.
Hey, Jamie,
What's that moment got to be like when you're beating Navy with your son as a? I mean, you've done it twice. I mean, you've done it like with both kids, right? I mean, it's just
Right. Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, as alum, losing to Navy is just unacceptable. So, beating Navy is awesome, and then beating Navy with your own kid as quarterback is just icing on the cake. So, yeah. So again, I pinch myself, knowing that one, I'm getting to coach at the my alma mater, the team that I played for. That's just a dream come true because I always wanted to be a coach, and then two to coach my own sons, playing quarterback for the same team I played quarterback for. Yeah, it's really cool.
and I'll
And
tell you, Jamie, this was I mean, obviously everybody knows our background and our kids grew up here, so they want to beat Navy as much as anybody. And so when they actually get their opportunity, and lucky enough, all of our kids have gotten, well, 3 of the 4 have gotten the opportunity, the next one will. But Kyle this year, I think Mark and I didn't realize how much pressure he was putting on himself. And so they beat Navy the first time, and that was great, but he knew that they had to beat him the second time in the championship. So, or they wanted to. So they win the championship, and we have a big celebration. We're back here at the house after the celebration, and it was probably like 11:30 at night. All of a sudden Kyle comes up to the two of us and he's just bawling. And he was like, I just wanted it so bad. He goes, I'm so glad we did it. And it was just kind of a touching moment, because I think we realized that, one, we brainwashed him that he was happy, but two, I think it just was a really special moment for him to kind of realize, hey, you guys have done a lot to help me get here, and now we've all finally done it.
but what's it got to be like for your old man too, seeing that? I mean, just like not only does he have you all from West Point, but also he's got your brother EG, and then also
Yeah,
his 2 other grandkids, one of which is at West Point teaching right now, and the other one is like lighting up the
yeah,
world on private equity world or whatever. So he must be like so
yeah,
happy to see all that.
yeah. I think for my dad, it's
And her dad is class of '62. For those out there that don't know.
yeah. So
Yeah.
uh and he wants to beat, and all of the kids,
Yeah,
all of the grandkids know that
yeah,
he wants to beat Navy. I mean, he was the one that during the streak of the big boy football team, he would leave. He even left on the year that we broke the streak, because he said, I would much rather miss watching us win than watch us lose again. So that's how much he hates losing to Navy. So to watch Kyle out there this year, and then to also have watched one year he got to watch both Keegan and Cooper, my nephew, were playing. Cooper played on Mark's team too. So the two of them got to beat Navy one year. And so he was out there with his 2
2
grandsons.
grandsons out there.
Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. And so, no, not, like last but not least, by any means, coming into class of 29, end of the line 29
Yep.
is Daisy.
everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine 29. So Daisy,
Miss
who is a
Daisy.
freshman right now at William and Mary,
Yeah,
has recently made the decision to move up and come to West Point, huh?
yeah. I mean, it was a tough decision, right out of high school to determine where she wanted to go to college and play soccer. When you pour your heart and soul into a sport like she did, with travel soccer, and uh, and of course she's got her siblings talking to her in one ear saying, "Oh, I don't know if you really need to come to West Point. It's really hard."
And she was the only one who was getting recruited super
Yeah,
heavily. Yeah.
she was getting recruited by a lot of other schools to play soccer. So, so her choosing William and Mary wasn't a huge surprise to us. But we always kind of felt that in the back of her mind, did I really make the right decision? And sure enough, in the fall season, she said, "Hey, I think I really want to go to West Point." Yeah, right after the season, and we're like, "Okay, sure." And she,
She was playing,
yeah,
and
and I mean, trust me, she loves William and Mary, loves the team, loves the culture, the coaches, has made good friends, but at the end of the day, she says, I want to be, I want to be a West Point cadet, and I want to serve my country. So, I mean, what can you say to that, right? So yeah, she got her offer a couple weeks ago, and just recently accepted, and so here we go again. Just when Holly and I thought we were going to be normal college parents for for the next 3 years and go to William and Mary and the awesome town of Williamsburg. I mean, shoot, you got a son there, so you know what we're talking about. Yeah, here we go again. We got another cadet.
We're actually
Yeah.
going to give her appointment, the folder at the Founders Day at Williamsburg, because Mark is speaking at the Founders Day. So at the Betty Havens hour, we talked to the folks, and
Paul Walton, our classmate.
yeah, and so we're going to give her appointment there.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So Mark, you are going, just to clarify, you're going out on the speaker circuit, and William and Mary in Williamsburg, the
Yep.
Westminster Association of Williamsburg, you're going to be down there giving the Founders Day speech.
Yes, they have a very robust West Point Society. We've met them. We watched this past fall. Matter of fact, we went to Williamsburg to see Daisy play a game. They didn't play till Sunday, so we had really nothing to do on Saturday. While Daisy was doing her walkthroughs with her team, we went and watched an Army football game at this local bar. They had reserved a section of the bar, and I want to say there's at least about 20, 25 society members showed up with their spouses, and it was big. Yeah. And so we had a blast, and Paul had mentioned to me, he said, "Hey, Mark, would you be interested in coming back as our Founders Day speaker, in March?" And I was like, "Sure, just reach out." So, yeah, I'm excited about it.
So we're coming up on the Founders Day circuit right now. So the next 6 weeks or so, there's a bunch of Founders Days that happen in New York, Philadelphia, you're going to Williamsburg. And I was very interested. We were talking before on the pre-call about what it takes to become, or what the preparation is to be a Founders Day speaker. And understandably, there's a desire to make sure that we get everybody reined in with some talking points. And Mark, you were describing how that goes down. So you basically let West Point know, "Hey, I'm a Founders Day speaker," and then they bring you in to the superintendent's conference room, and you have an idea, so tell me what that's like, and
Yeah.
how you've been a Founders Day
Yeah.
speaker as well in the past. So what's the inside baseball? How does that go down?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the societies ask for people, so they kind of put in a wish list, and that's how I got to speak at some, because some of our classmates at different places would say, "Hey, Holly, you want to come speak at our Founders Day?" And if they ask for you and no one else wants it, or the superintendent, the commandant, the dean don't want it, then you can go out and do it. So the societies will ask. If they don't ask for someone, then they get an at-large. So in this particular case, Paul asked for Mark. That's how he got a chance to do it.
It all goes through AOG. So
Yeah. But interestingly, a side note, then I'll go into the other piece. Anthony Noto was actually speaking at the New York City one, even though he's not a West Point staff and faculty. They asked him to speak at the New York City one. And then the New York City Society asked me, Andy Bang, who's class of 92, asked me to introduce him. So I'm introducing Anthony at the one at the Union League Club that's on March 28th, I think.
Right.
The next week. But go ahead.
How does that work for Alex Gorski's doing Philadelphia? So was he in the room with you, Mark, or how do they do that remotely for those guys?
So you say in the room, and so every Founders Day season, as you mentioned, anybody that's going to speak, anybody that's on the staff and faculty at West Point that's going to speak at a Founders Day meets with the superintendent in his conference room, and he just gives his really his guidance on what the parameters are, what we should be talking about, frequently asked questions. The AOG provides a placemat, if you will, of all these different tidbits of information that you may be asked, and so it's just the superintendent's way of prepping all the speakers to say, "Hey, look, you're representing the academy, just make sure you understand what you're going into, and just be prepared to answer as many questions as you can." And he said, "Hey, look, don't let anybody fluster you. You might get some of those old grads out there who, why are we doing this or why are we doing that?" And he goes, "If it ever gets to the point where you can't answer a question or you feel uncomfortable," he said, "give them my number." He said, "They can call me." So we're like, "Okay, that's cool. Yeah, sure. Here, call the soup." But yeah, so they do their best, I guess you could say, to prep all the speakers as we head out to the Founders Day season.
So given the fact that there's been a lot of attention on West Point with the recent disbanding of clubs and all that kind of stuff, what kind of talking points did you get from him at that point?
Yeah, that came up actually. We recently had to suspend, if you will, a lot of clubs, about a dozen or so clubs at West Point because of the executive order that came down from President Trump. And so, he said, "Hey, look, I know you're probably going to get these questions." He said, "Just let everybody know that Holly can get into the more detail of the history behind it, but let everybody know that because these certain clubs were under DEI, uh, in being funded by DEI, when we were told in an executive order to, basically drop DEI, that meant we had to drop those clubs." He goes, "So we're currently, West Point's currently doing a review at the superintendent's directive to, figure out how can we get these clubs up and running again." That's really
So yeah, Holly, you have the inside baseball perspective because this goes back to General Caslin. It was an effort to streamline the management of clubs. That a group of these clubs ended up being this quote unquote diversity, right? So
Yeah.
you tell the story. It was General Caslin. You were working for General Caslin, and even part of this process, right?
Yeah. And basically he was getting indications, and on some surveys we were getting indications. There were a couple of incidents that had happened on some of the club trips that were letting him know that there might be cultures that were running counter to the academy. And so we started doing these culture surveys of the clubs. We also did them for the core squad teams. And so every single cadet who was on a club or a core squad team, so obviously there's some that are on multiple, you had to fill this out for every club or core squad team you were a part of. And we did that again to assess the club culture. So we started finding that there were clubs that were doing some things that we didn't want to happen. And we even started asking people to dime out other clubs, like, hey, if you do know that there's a club out there that's doing something, or a team. And it was amazing what we got. And I can tell you that it was like the teams that you would have the least expecting that were running counterculture, that were like the fencing club at that point was doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Like what?
So,
Like what would be a crazy thing the fencing person does? Like what like
oh yeah, I mean, it wasn't like in the club. It was when they were going on trip sections, and I think because they thought they were going under the radar, that they were going out. I remember one of them saying the girls were reporting that they were going to strip clubs. I mean, it was crazy stuff on trip sections, and we're like, who would have known the fencing club is like the wild and crazy club at West Point? So anyway, as a result of these surveys, General Caslin said, okay, we need to, at that point, I think we had 107 clubs. So we initially started saying, do we need this many clubs? Can we start to trim down the number of clubs? Because with this many, it's hard to control.
and
But then
they all fell under DCA at
yep,
that point, right? Director of Cadet Activities. And
and that's where
who
they
heads
all,
that up? Who's
that's
the
the
head of it?
director of cadet activities. It's like a full colonel who heads now 107 clubs and is also in charge of Eisenhower Hall, Grant Hall, cadet restaurant, all of the concessions at the football games. I mean, it's like this huge job. And so he decided, okay, let's try to divvy up the clubs. So we divided them up into 6 different groups, and it was the academic, the religious, the culture, the hobby, the competitive club, and the language. And so therefore now he was able to say, okay, guess what? Head of foreign language, you've got the language clubs. The dean had all of the academic clubs, and it kind of went on from there. And so the diversity clubs, they put underneath the diversity office. Now they were getting some of their money from the diversity office, but the majority of their money for the clubs come from either AOG or DCA. But now the diversity office is the one who's dispersing their funds because they're controlling the funds. So because of that, when the diversity offices had to be suspended based on the executive order, now these clubs have to be suspended. But it did not happen at the other academies because their clubs did not fall under their diversity office. They probably fell under still their cadet activities.
So the unintended consequence, the effort to streamline and organize ended up that a few of these clubs ended up under diversity.
Yeah.
And then of course you've got people, you see this, I've seen, memes or arguments like, why is it that we're shutting down this club but not the Polish club, right?
Yes.
Well, the Polish club is under the languages, and this one is under the culture, under the diversity.
Right. Yeah.
And the intention is not to shut these clubs down, it's to reconstitute them as appropriate into these other areas, or
Yes.
think about.
Yeah.
So poor I can imagine what the staff is going through. Like you feel like you can't do anything right. You're trying to like respond to the executive order, and you want to try to do right by these well-meaning clubs, and you have to do it in a methodical way, right? That's the challenge.
And I think they didn't want to immediately move them under different organizations, because that wasn't the spirit of the executive order, and they felt like then it would look like they were hiding them instead of just reviewing them. So I think all of them are going to be stood back up, but it was just by chance that those were the 12. I remember when we had the discussion over which ones should fall under that, and one of the ones that we actually were contemplating putting under the diversity office was the gospel choir, because they tend to go out and they perform in a lot of events that support the all of the DEI principles and the goals, or they go out and serve at different events as representatives. And so that one almost fell under the diversity office, and we didn't put it under the diversity office. So we had a conscious decision. I remember, I mean, I was involved, but I wasn't the one doing it, of which ones should fall under, and I can't remember the reason for all of them, but yeah.
There's a meeting that takes place with class leaders once a month for all the 90s. We kind of stood this thing up as actually Brandy Peasley from class of 94 is the one who stepped and suggested we should have we've got very similar issues across classes where we're chronological peers. We should be sharing best practices. And so we have this group that meets monthly. And we had just had the meeting I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, right in the midst of all this that was happening. And we're asking AOG, can you give us guidance? How do we talk to our class? How do we talk to our classmates about what's going on? And it was too soon for AOG to have their talking points out then. They do now. But Mark Beeger, our classmate, and I think we got 3 classmates at AOG. We got Mark Beeger, we got Dee Dee Broderick, and we got Hairball is recently.
Hairball is
awesome.
now. Yeah, he just got there 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we celebrated with him on Friday night. We had a beer with he and Fitzy down in New Jersey.
That's great. I'm good. So I wanted to get Hairball. Well, first of all, I was supposed to get Fitzy for tonight. Fitzy had to change the last minute. He was a mix up on the date. And so we're going to get Fitzy. We're going to get Hairball on the Old Grad podcast sometime soon.
Hairball has more stories than probably anyone I've heard on the Old Grad podcast. You just have to get him going.
Yeah, gotta get him. Well, speaking of the Old Grad podcast, I mean, we've been through some seasons with the Old Grad podcast, right? And the intention here is that this really becomes our class history. This is our class story. Is the Old Grad podcast, and I definitely want to have Hairball on there. The biggest challenge with the Old Grad podcast is just the logistics of booking people and getting it lined up. That's why I appreciate you guys doing it at such short notice, But I do have a few classmates lined up.
Good.
Coming up, we've got Troy and Sue Filburn. They're going to come.
Nice.
They're going to come on. And with them, I'm also happy because I'm getting my last 2 companies I've never gotten. Believe it or not,
awesome.
7.5 years. I never got B4 and I never got F4. And by the 2 of them together, I'm going to knock out both of those.
Good companies. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Good for you.
We just heard from John Cook just called us, and Jose Aguilar and Susie Wong, who was in F4, I believe. Suzanne Wong Aguilar, they are married, and they have I don't even know if it's a son or a daughter graduating this year. And Mark and I went back, and I'm like, how come we didn't really know that? And then we realized we did know it at some point, because we have over all of the class of 91 people the day before our day. We bring them to our house. But the reason we didn't remember was because for that particular class, it was 21, and they restricted. They said no one can gather. Yeah, so Mark wasn't able to bring his team over. We weren't able to have. The superintendent said no one can bring any new cadets because they didn't want them to get COVID, even though we were 15 months after. So the people who have kids in the class of 25, I apologize, but John Cook just connected us because they're looking for a place to stay for someone in their party for graduation.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They can always stay at Westy's.
Always stay
Well,
at Westy's.
he's probably got his place. Westy's the real Westy.
Oh yeah, the Westy's house. Sorry, not the Westy's bar.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue. So we should talk about this big endeavor that you all have put. You're putting this bar in Highland Falls, which is, I think, a lifelong goal or aspiration that you've had, is to have this cool little place. And Highland Falls is, they're trying to come back. We're trying to build for this renaissance, but it's been a challenged area for the last 10 years. And so tell me about Westy's, tell me about what you're doing, and how how we could be helpful as a class.
So I'll start a little bit. I'm from, those of you guys who don't know, I'm from Highland Falls. My dad retired from the military, got a job in AOG, and moved into Highland Falls. So I moved into Highland Falls when I was in 9th grade, moved to West Point when I was in 5th grade, but have basically lived in the area since 1979. So have seen the ups and downs of Highland Falls. I've always called Highland Falls my hometown. And when AOG started their Hudson Valley project, which is their project to try to help restore Highland Falls, and they started talking about it probably about 6-7 years ago, and convinced their board of directors to start investing in real estate. So some of these buildings had been sitting there for sale. You weren't going to get real estate investors to come in because Highland Falls looked very depressed. So AOG went out, bought some of the properties up, and are now in the process of trying to pull in investors, work with the town to really restore Highland Falls. So prior to that, or right as that was going on, Mark and I were talking and said, we're pretty well suited to do something. It's something that I don't say that it's a dream, maybe an aspiration. I mean, probably Mark and I have talked about it our whole lives. Like, oh, what if we open a bar? We used to have names for our bars. For a while, I was collecting stuff saying, oh, this is what's going to go in our bar. We've always had a garage bar, so we've always had a place where people would come and gather. And so it's been one of those things we've just talked about. I don't know if I would say a dream, but anyway, so we always talked about it. So when about 3 years ago, I said, if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. And that was right at the time when the Park and the Shades both closed, and Maria Bonita closed, and Tony's Restaurant closed, all for different reasons. Many of them family owned. Tony Park and the Shades were family owned in Highland Falls for 80 years. And when you have those 3 places that had been there for 80 years closed within 3 months of each other, I mean, that was just the perfect storm for Highland Falls. So we started saying, this is the time to do it. We're well suited because we split the border between West Point and Highland Falls. We've lived in Highland Falls as a couple prior to this last stint. Our kids have gone to O'Neill. I went to O'Neill, but we also have lived on West Point. So we kind of bit the bullet. And then luckily for us, AOG bought the building where we're putting Westy's, and we started talking to them, and they've really helped us. And, we're not even paying, we're doing the renovations now. We're not paying rent. So they've really negotiated a really good lease for us and have helped us kind of along the way. So we are well on our way now to being.
Yeah, and Jamie, and you asked, how can everyone help? And I just can't emphasize enough. We can't emphasize enough that we believe, and there's a lot of folks in the area that believe now is the time to resurrect, if you will, Highland Falls. And I think if you remember when we were cadets, and I know Holly can remember, but Highland Falls was a pretty prosperous place. It had a lot more going on. I mean, at one point in time, it was in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most popular, densely populated bar area, in the country.
We just got bars when we were cadets.
Right. And so, to resurrect Highland Falls and to try to bring it back to life, if you will not only obviously help Highland Falls, but it's going to help West Point. It's going to attract faculty. It's going to attract recruits. It's going to attract families. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times where Holly and I will get, usually Holly will get a call or a text or email or social media from a parent saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a place to stay and I'm looking for some restaurants. Any recommendations?" You sure as heck can't recommend Highland Falls. The best thing you can do is say, well, you got to go over the mountains somewhere.
Well, there's a couple spots, but nothing. I mean, like the Mexican place is still there. That's pretty good, right?
Oh yeah, all you got really right now is Hacienda, which we were at last night, and trust me, it was hopping. I mean, it was packed. I think it was National Margarita Day. That's probably one of the reasons why. But you got Hacienda, and you got this new place that's trying to make it. It's called the Highland Social House. It's kind of off the beaten path. It's not on Main Street.
They have great burgers. I've been there.
Great. No, it's hey, look, Holly and I have been there numerous times, and it's really good, but it's just a tough location, and so bottom line is, we, like Holly said, we feel the timing is couldn't be better for us to try to do this. And again, we're not trying to get rich off this.
Nobody gets rich off of bars.
Right.
Challenge. I mean,
no,
but you gotta try not to lose your shirt. That's that's the big challenge here with bars, is that like you're not going to make a ton of money. You're not like hopefully you make some money, which would be good, and it's going to be a wonderful place and a great commitment to the community.
Right, and that's what we're just trying to do our share. We've chosen to make Highland Falls, Fort Montgomery, West Point, obviously our home, and we want to try to make it better. And that's about as simple as I can say it. So we're trying to do our share by opening up Westies, and we're hoping that our classmates and friends and alum out there will be a part of Team Westies and be a part of it.
So you got the website. Is it launched, or you're about to launch the website?
Launching tomorrow.
Launching tomorrow. So today is the 23rd of February. So 24th of February it's going to be launched. What's the website's URL?
It's westyshighlandfalls.com.
All one word, Westies, WESTYS. Highlandfalls.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we're going to put it tomorrow. We'll put it on the class Facebook page with a little blurb. We are asking for people to be part of our winner's circle, and you'll see what that is. But it's just, you can get more information about Westies. And then we also have a Instagram page, which is, I think that one is like Westies_Highland Falls.
We're up to about almost 800 followers.
And then we've got a Facebook page too. So you'll be able to see the updates on the construction, the updates for the opening, and then obviously once we open, the hours and things like that. But it will be a cool place with live music. It's going to have outdoor space. Going to be able to have some cornhole bags and kind of a place that you don't see in Highland Falls right now.
What's your projected opening date?
We're shooting for August.
July, August sometime.
Initially, we were hoping to be open by about now, but we're learning a lot, put it that way. And
construction's never fun.
And the planning board and the zoning boards and all the politics that goes into all that. It's just taking a little longer than what we'd have liked, but we're moving at a pretty good pace right now. So we're hoping to be open. We think we'll be open by August.
Hopefully acceptance day,
if not soon.
Yeah, that's what we're shooting. We're really shooting. We were just talking today, and we said if acceptance day will hopefully be like our end date. Like if we could do the grand opening, we plan to do a soft opening with a lot of friends, families, the week before the grand opening, and so we want the cadets. The grand opening will be when we let cadets come in for the first time. So we will have an opening before that, but the grand opening will hopefully be around acceptance day, if not the week after.
Right. And the address is 427 Main Street. I know that. The reason why I know that is because I'm renting the apartment upstairs. So
yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
I'm going to have my own tap coming up to my place up there, right?
All the people who need to stumble, you'll just have to make it up the flight of stairs and make it into Jamie's apartment.
Yeah. So I'm renting the apartment up top. So
I'll make sure I give them all your code.
Yeah, that's great. I'm actually I'm actually going to change the code here pretty soon. I've been rent, I've been letting too many people stay there, so I need to like probably I need to change it. So, but yeah, so that's gonna be so awesome. And like what's good like it's you're gonna have like it's gonna be a tap house, right? Like a lot of specialty beers.
Yeah, our motto is where craft meets community. So we're gonna highlight craft beers because we're both beer lovers. But it's not just gonna be a beer. We're gonna be a full liquor license. We're gonna have some specialty cocktails, that we'll serve monthly or seasonally. But yeah, we'll highlight probably 10 or 12 local craft beers. Like I said, monthly, seasonally, but we'll still have your staples. We're gonna have obviously gonna have Coors Light because that's our favorite beer, but we'll have the Coors Light and the Budweiser and the Guinness or whatever. But yeah, we'll highlight some craft beers, have specialty cocktails, and then we're going to have the menu will be. It's not going to be a full plated menu. It's going to be more shareables, tapas style, small plate bites. Just enough to kind of keep you thirsty.
It will be to kind of share for the table, and that's part of the community aspect. So when you go in, you decide as a table or whoever you're with, what do we want to eat, and then you order for the table.
Yep, and like Holly said,
you've also got some other ideas about how to call out who are the like who's in the bar, like what classes are there. You're gonna have like some ways to let people know like the history of the bar, the connection to West Point, all that kind of stuff, right?
There's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of stories. Obviously, a lot of them are our stories. We've got one cool thing that I'll tell you. There's going to be a lot of stories. So when you come in there, there'll be little QR codes in different places so that you can see, and you'll go to the website to see more of the stories. For any of you guys who are familiar with Ebenezer, who many of us on this call are, Ebenezer is going to be retired to Westy's, and he's going to have his own shadow box with a spotlight on him.
Wow.
So that will be, so that will be, so that's going to be its own little story. But then one of the cool things we're going to have in two different places, we're going to have these coin walls. So imagine the old, like, I don't know what they call it, the trick things where
the coins, you put a coin in
and it falls down. Well, we're going to have where you can bring in one of your coins, your unit coins, and it will go into this wall, and as the wall fills up, it's just going to be kind of a piece of art. And we're going to have that in two different spots. And so when you come in, if you have a coin, you can give it to the bartender, they'll ring a bell, you get a beer, and then your coin goes into the wall forever and ever. And so we're going to have that in a couple different spots, which is kind of a cool nod. It's not going to be like an in your face. For those of you people who've been in my house or seen my house, it's not going to be an in your face army decorations, but there's going to be enough that you're going to walk in and it's going to be some old army stuff, but then some kind of cool army stuff that maybe you wouldn't be expecting. So we've got a lot of really cool things that are going to go in it that we're really excited about.
That made me think. So like your house is very army decorated, with army decor.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Yeah. So, but when Daisy decided to go to William and Mary, I found this really nice picture of the William and Mary, the Wren building. My son's a senior there. I love William and Mary. So what are you gonna do with that thing now that
it's gonna stay right there? And it's hanging right outside of one of our bars in our house right now because I like the picture.
Yeah. That'll still remain.
That'll be cool. I think to go to a regular civilian university for a year and then go to West Point is a great way to go to West Point, I think. And all your kids did something for a year before they went. Brilliant. Yeah, it's a brilliant.
Lexi did a year. Lexi did a year at University of Rhode Island, and I remember when she found out that she got in to West Point, she actually was like, she was excited at first, and then she's like, I don't know if I want to go. And she was actually doing ROTC, and she really loved the ROTC. She had a great community, and so she had to think long and hard about it.
Kenny Mintz was her brigade commander.
Yeah, Kenny Mintz was her brigade commander. I've got a picture of them doing PT together. but yeah, for our kids in particular, I think it was important for them to move away and to get the experience of living away from West Point. For any kid to do a year before they go to West Point, I think it helps, because especially if they do that year away from home, because then they're not grappling with homesickness at the same time they're grappling with, oh my gosh, what did I just do? So I think, whether it be a prep school, college, anything, I think it's a good thing. And from working there and teaching there for so long, it was very evident in my class, the kids who had a year or two before they came to West Point.
Yeah.
And sometimes even 3. Mark and I taught a girl in this must have been back in like she probably was class of 2013. And when we were teaching, Mark and I co-taught MS 400 back then, and she had gone to Cal State.
You co-taught it, like as a couple, you co-taught it?
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Wait, so did you like talk about the experience of having 2 Army officers, husband and wife? Like, wow.
Yeah, so that class is called officership.
Yeah.
And they started it in I think 2010, 2011. And they were trying to figure out what does this class need to be, but they realized 4-star General Franks, retired. Fred Franks was the one who said, we need something that talks about what it means to be an officership and joining this profession before people go out. So they started this class called MX 400, and they asked people, the staff and faculty, because at that point it wasn't resourced, but they knew they wanted to do it. And so Mark and I volunteered. We taught it actually. No. You were working in ODA at the time.
Oh, ODA. Yeah.
And anyway, so we co-taught it because we thought that it would be a neat perspective for the cadets to have not only a dual military, because now we're talking about what it means to be an officer, but now we have combat arms, non-combat arms. So it was fun. We taught it actually 2 semesters. Yeah.
Now, where does that fall under? Like, what department is the lead department for that class?
So now it falls under the Simon Center. For a while, it was one of those classes that they called it at the time the superintendent's capstone course, and it didn't fall under. I think they had someone maybe when they first started in the commandant's office that was managing it, and so everyone was like, "Where does it fall?" Because it's academic, but it's also kind of the military aspect. So it ended up residing underneath the Simon Center, which is the Simon Center for the character and military education.
Mm-hmm. Does that make it like a different you still get 3 credits or 4 credits for it? Okay, so you
get 3 credits. And Mark and I actually, most of the cadets know that MX 400 is not a class you're going to fail, and it is. You do get a letter grade for it. But we had an interesting story. The second semester we taught it, we had this kid in our class who was a prior service prepster and captain of the rugby team. So this dude comes in and he's thinking he's all that. We actually knew his tactical officer very well, because his tactical officer had been one of the captains of the rugby team when we were captains at West Point, and we sponsored him. So we kind of knew this kid a little bit, or knew about the kid. And he was also president of his class. So he had everything going for him. And in MX 400, you want the cadets, it's obviously very discussion based. You want them to share their stories and share their thoughts and feelings. And the final exam in the class was an oral where we asked them a lot about mission command and some other principles of the Army, principles of officership. Well, this kid, Jeff, I won't say his last name, but Jeff, throughout the course, we had to correct him, because he just kept on saying, "Ma'am, I can't come to class. I'm doing this, can't come to class." And we actually called his TAC, and he was like, "Yeah, you can call him out, or I'll talk to him. He should be coming to class. He can't get out of class."
Hold on. Can't come to class. This is West Point.
He was using his class presidency. He was saying, "Ma'am, I've got to go do stuff for the, for being a class president. It was 100th night, and I've got to go do stuff for being a class president."
But you get out of class, an academic class? You get out of class for that?
Well, I mean, he told us, and he's a second semester firstie. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, I don't think he's lying to me. I think he's having to do something. So we kind of were like, okay, you don't have to come to class. Or he'd show up late to class saying, "Oh, I had to go do something for 100th night," or whatever, class president. But the bottom line is he wasn't really participating nearly as much as we thought he should be in this class. So at one point we kind of called him out and we're like, dude, you know, come on, you got it. You're president of the class and cap of the rugby team and all this, and you haven't even contributed at all. And he was like, oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Got it. So anyway, come time for his oral exam, which is now 2 weeks before graduation, and the cadets had to schedule a time. We did the oral exams the week before term end week. So maybe it was 3 weeks before graduation, and they scheduled a time and they had to come in. Mark and I were sitting, like, it was almost like a panel. They had to come in, report in their white over gray. And, you know, it was a board. Basically, they had to stand there at attention, I think. Anyway, this kid doesn't show up. He doesn't show up for his time. And Mark and I are like, are you kidding me? You know, he's not showing up now. He's been kind of this cocky dude all semester, and now he doesn't show up for his final exam. So we were both fuming. At the time, we're both lieutenant colonels, and we're like, I don't even know what to do. So he's just missed his term end. So I go back to my office. There's no email from him, nothing. He doesn't come like running down the hall at the last minute. So I just sent him a note saying, Jeff, you failed to report to your duty. And that's all I put. And again, nothing like, I mean, if someone wrote that to me 3 weeks before graduation, I would be like in that person's office begging and pleading. And he just wrote me back and he was like, yes, ma'am, my bad. Can I reschedule? And we were like, oh my gosh. So at this point, we didn't even know what to do. And so I called the course director and I said, I don't know what to do. Do we fail this kid? I mean, no one ever failed MX400, but I was like, obviously he's not ready to be an officer if he's just kind of thinking that this is not that big of a deal. So we end up rescheduling with him. He walks in, and one of the last questions we asked the cadets is, are you ready to be a platoon leader? And so now here's this kid, and he's like 25 years old. When we asked him that, he was like, well, I know you might not think I am because I missed it, but I think I am. But you know, maybe I still have some stuff to learn. I mean, it was just, he really didn't answer it very well. And the rest of the exam was not very good either. So we proceed to just rip him a new one. I mean, absolutely rip him apart in this oral exam. And then we said, we don't know what we're going to do. I don't know if you're graduating. And he was like, what? And we're like, we don't know if you're going to graduate because you missed your final exam. And just because you've got it now, it doesn't matter. So we go back, we talk to his TAC, we talk to the course director, we talked to his RTO, who we knew. And so what we decided to do was I wrote him and sent him and said, here's your assignment. You have got to write it was like a 10-page paper or something on why you think you're ready to be a platoon leader and how this 47 months has prepared you to do that. And then you are going to show up. It was Saturday before they had to report back after term end leave. So basically we said, you can't leave for term end leave. You can't take any term end leave. And the Saturday before graduation, 1 week before graduation, you have to report to our office to now defend your paper. And he didn't know who was going to be there. And so he shows up and he walks in, and we've got his TAC, his RTO, and Mark and I are both sitting there. And I will tell you, it was the first time you saw this kid shake. And he was visibly shaken. And so he kind of goes into explain why he thought he was ready to be a platoon leader. And the RTO just rips him apart. He starts off and he's like, you've got 75 years of experience in this room. And who do you think you are? I mean, Mark and I didn't have to say anything. He just starts ripping him. And this guy was supposed to be going infantry and was supposed to be going to Ranger school early. And so then the TAC lit into him, and Mark and I we had already lit into him. So anyway, he leaves, and then we discuss, okay, are we going to let him graduate? Because at this point we hadn't decided whether or not he was going to graduate. So we were like, okay, you think he's learned his lesson? What do you think? I mean, it was kind of like a stop-and-wish now that you think about it. But anyway, we made this decision, he did. So he comes back in, and we said, you know, we hope you've learned your lesson. We think that you've now passed the class. And I mean, he was as close to tears as I think he could be. But the cool story of it is that week, I think he wrote us all a thank you note and said, oh my gosh, I needed this. I don't think I would have been a good platoon leader without this experience. But then fast forward like 10, 12 weeks later, he wrote another email back to us and said, I just graduated from Ranger School, went straight through. And he said, and I thought about that day every single day at Ranger School. And he said, I would not have, he goes, I was not ready until I had that experience.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
here, I mean, when you said I'm blowing off class, I was like, what the hell? But it was like you did finally got his attention. That's
We did. No, we did. And that's the beauty of us when we were at West Point. You have those experiences, and then you have those kids who get a chance to look back and go, oh, okay. But I said, I don't know what other instructors would have done. You know, if you had two captains in there, they might have just been like, screw me, failing. Mark and I had our experience. We were like, okay, let's see what we can do. But anyway, that was kind of an interesting experience of us teaching MX 400 together.
amazing. Amazing. Hey, let's talk about our upcoming reunion that's happening in December. First of all, I want to just say the two of you have been the real impetus for our class getting together, like a lot, like doing the class tailgate every year and connecting people. I feel like, you know, as I mentioned, I'm on these 90s calls. I feel like our class is probably the most connected, or one of the most connected of the 90s, and a lot of it goes right back to you. So thank you for all that you do to make this happen. And so last year we had this amazing experience in Kentucky, in Lexington, which was great. And so we said we had such a great time. We don't want to do this every 2 or 3 or 5 years. Let's do it every year if we can, or as long as we have the momentum. And so Mark Kramer raised his hand, said, you know, we have a kind of a concentration of classmates in Denver, and we could probably do something in Denver. So let's talk about what we're doing in Denver in August of 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah. You go ahead and start. I'm going to go grab it.
Okay. So the team, what's cool is there is a team together, and Pat Kern and John Cook, Jim Rockwell have been really spearheading it with Mark Kramer. Mark's the one that's really been running it, but they've been helping him quite a bit. And so the plan right now is on Thursday night, the hotel is the Omni in Interlaken, and which is a beautiful hotel. If you go on the site, great pool and stuff like that. So as Mark said, I think a lot of us will just want to hang out there for a little bit. But there's a golf on Thursday for those people who want to play. And then on Thursday night, there's going to be a cocktail party at the hotel.
Just clarifying, this is Thursday, the 21st of August.
Correct. Thursday, the 21st. And for those of you, Mark is already wearing his, we got these at Army Navy. Mark
Kramer brought them.
He brought
them. I still need mine. I didn't get mine yet.
Yeah. So you only get one if you sign up. Anyway, so that's on Thursday is golf, and then the cocktail party. And on Friday, it's still a little bit up in the air of where we're going to go. Do some touring of Colorado, somewhere in the mountains or Red Rocks or something where we get some Colorado scenery and get to see Denver a little bit maybe. And then Friday night, we're getting to go to Pat Kern's house, and he lives out on a ranch, and he's having a big barbecue, going to have axe throwing, maybe pugil sticks or
the pugil sticks looks amazing. So these are no pugil. This would be great. So it's blow up pugil sticks.
It's blow up pugil sticks.
Yeah, on a bouncy house, right? So you're basically in the bouncy house and you're on a pad. It's like because I saw the picture of it, and like you like joust each other, try to knock each other off your pad, right?
Yeah, no, it looks like fun. Yeah. And then on Saturday is the day we're getting a tour of the Coors Brewery, and then coming back to the hotel. And Saturday night is a dinner at, I don't know if you've looked up the history of the Cactus Club, but it's like this club that's 100 years old, and it's downtown Denver. It's really kind of this cool old club. But anyway, we're going to have dinner there, and then that's it. And then that's on your own.
And then Sunday, people are leaving, but Sunday night, the Goo Goo Dolls are playing at
Red Rocks.
So I'm going to be going to that concert, and that'll be like a little add-on for anybody that wants to go.
Yeah.
Send out the information that the Goo Goo Dolls are playing there that night, and we get tickets.
Yeah. So I think there's already a lot of people signed up, but there's still room to sign up. So if you want to sign up, I think
The hotel rooms.
the hotel rooms, if you go on the website, there's been a couple of sites, but the website, what's the website for that, Jamie? It's like 1991reunion.com or something like that.
Yeah, I think I'm going to make sure that I have it posted in the show notes. Let me just see if that's right though. 1991 reunion. Yep, that's it. 1999reunion.com.
Yeah.
Is the website. Yep.
So you can go there to sign up. And like Jamie said, and I think if you talk to anybody who went to Lexington last year, I don't think we anticipated having as much fun as we actually did.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And that's the beauty of where we are in life, right? I mean, we've got maybe jobs with some flexibility. We got kids that are self-sufficient. We got, maybe a lot more flexibility with our personal lives to do this stuff, right? And we got our health.
Yeah.
We got our health. We can still, maybe do the jousting or the pugil stick thing without like blowing out our shoulders.
Think about that.
And golfing and hiking and all that kind of stuff. Let's carpe diem, man. Enjoy the moment, right?
Yeah. And I'm hoping that a lot of people come. I know I looked at the list and there's already some people who didn't go last year, some people who went last year, but hopefully we can kind of build the momentum and someone will step up to do the next one.
Yeah, I think so. It's
like going on vacation with your friends.
It is so much fun. It is so much fun. It is so great. I can't wait for that. And then I think the Goo Goo Doll thing, which is like sort of outside the bounds of our typical of our scheduled time, but that Sunday night would be a great add-on too for anybody that wants to do that.
Yeah.
Might be able to pull that off. We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, anything else going on at West Point that's worthy of note, or any other things connecting us to our rockbound Highland home?
So for the people who haven't been back, and you've probably seen the pictures, the two big things that are going on are the stadium, and so the east stands are still down. You don't see, there's lots of construction going on, but we have not started to see the steel frame going up yet. I think when that starts going up, everyone will get really excited. But right now we still have the big hole. But that's going to be a great place. Not that West Point wasn't a great place to watch a football game, but I said it's going to be even better when that's put in.
Yeah.
And then the SEAC, if you haven't seen that has just kind of risen up from literally the ground when they blasted out a mountain to build that. When we were living on West Point, they started blasting our last year, and they would announce at 7:00, or I think it was 7:30 in the morning and 1:00 in the afternoon. They would send an alarm out, and then there'd be a big explosion, and that was the dynamite of them blasting the mountain. And then they'd go and get rocks, and you'd see the trucks going out. And they did that for our whole last year, is how long they've been working on it. But now that is in the final stages, and I think that's supposed to be ready by next fall. That was the initial intent, whether or not it's on schedule, but looks like they're starting to put the granite up now.
Yeah, I heard when one of the things that they're planning to do after that is they're going to redo Thayer Hall. So once the people moved into SEAC, then they're going to redo Thayer Hall. And what's going to be interesting is, I talked to the architect at some whatever I saw him present, and that they're going to build it so that the hallways are on the outside of the building.
Yeah.
Right now the hallways are on the inside. The hallways are going to be the outside, and it's going to be all glass looking out the Hudson. That's going to be pretty amazing.
And they're adding a floor.
Okay, I didn't know that.
They're adding. They initially, I think we're going to add 2 floors. I think it's still maybe 1. I don't know if they're adding the 2. But you can imagine, if for those engineers or project managers on the call, you can imagine how they're going to do that when there's only the one road right next to Thayer. So they can't block off that road with dumpsters. So all of the debris that they're getting out of that building has to go all the way down to South Dock. So it's going to be an engineering marvel.
It's going to make Westies look like child's play, right?
Yeah. No, it's going to be great.
Going back to Westies, let's finish up with Westies, and then I want to finish up. I've got some West Point trivia questions that I've got this really cool. My son gave me these West Point trivia cards, which is
Nice.
my son who goes to William and Mary. He found it. I don't know where he found it, but I've got some trivia questions. But going back to Westy, so right now you're under construction. You're doing demolition.
Yep.
Uh, so did you have to like what type of construction are you doing inside the building? What's actually happening?
It's really not a whole lot. We're trying to increase the space by taking out a few walls. Of course, we got to put in all the furnishings, fixtures, the bars. We've got to add the kitchen. Um, we've got to create a hallway from the front bar to the back bar. And I guess the biggest addition will be the pavilion out back. We're going to have an outdoor pavilion, but really it's a Four Seasons pavilion. That can be in the winter months. You can close the kind of garage doors, the accordion windows, kind of seal it all up so that in the winter you can also enjoy the space and use the space. So it's going to be. I mean, it's they say 4 to 6 months for construction, and if it's on track, then we should open by football season.
Outside with the pavilion, we'll have some cornhole, so you'll be able to go out there with the garage doors open, like Mark said, play some cornhole, ring toss if you've ever done that. So that type of stuff is never, we don't have anything like that in Highland Falls. Plus the fact that we'll have live music on Friday and Saturday nights inside.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. And
Well, Mark,
then one other kind of going back to your question about some of the new things going on at West Point for all the sports and Army sports enthusiasts out there. Just know that the athletic department is in good hands. Mike Buddy.
oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. I'm sorry.
Well,
Yeah, good point.
no,
Yeah,
no,
so
no,
Mike
that's
Buddy.
okay. But Mike Buddy, who was our AD, got us through COVID. God bless him. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody to be in charge of an organization during COVID. But he handled it well, and he finally got the Mikey Stadium project off the ground, and but he's moved on to TCU, and we ended up hiring a guy we know is Tom Theodorakis. We all call him Theo. He was an internal hire. Of course, they did a nationwide search, and they decided to go with Theo. And I will tell you, I'm not sure if we could have found anybody better. He's been running our fundraising for the department now for the last, I think, 3 years. And he's got an awesome resume, great background, won a national championship playing lacrosse at Syracuse. So he loves sports. I mean, he has already been out and about to all the sporting events in his short time as AD. He just wants to make sure that all the cadets and the teams have what they need to succeed. So we're very excited about him at the helm as our new AD.
And Holly, you said that you were involved in hiring the AD back like years ago, or like internally when it's because the AD is as big of a job as the commandant, right? I mean, it's kind of like that. It's that big of a role. So it's nationwide search. It's a. So what went in? Who did you hire, and how did that go down when you hired that person?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. That was right when the first athletic director that really brought our athletic department into the 21st century was Rick Greenspan. A lot of people didn't like him because he also hired Todd Berry, which started the football streak. But Rick Greenspan was, prior to Rick Greenspan, it was Al Vanderbush, who was retired 06. And Carl Ulrich was there when we were there, and he left to go to the Patriot League. So he was a good, very, very good athletic director, but wasn't in the fundraising aspect of it. It was, just ran the athletic department and managed the teams. That was in the kind of the 90s. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, there's all of this sponsorship and money to be raised. We need someone who's going to help us get some of these sponsorships, get the TV deals, get all of those things that we're missing out on. And that's when we hired Rick Greenspan. That's when we went in the conference to try to get in on some of those deals. Well, obviously that didn't turn out well. So when Rick Greenspan ended up leaving us and going to Indiana, I think, but when he left, I was the dean's executive officer. And back then, the chair of the athletic committee was the dean. And So therefore the dean was the head of the search committee. So he said, okay, Holly, you're the secretary of the search committee. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I like sports. And so what was interesting was we got in all of these applications and I was the one who actually screened them. But we also hired a search firm and we were paying the search firm back then. It was, I remember thinking it was a lot of money. It was like $15,000. And as I was getting in all of these applications from the people at large, because we had advertised it in whatever mediums you advertise for AD in, I would screen them and then I would bring them to General Kaufman and he was like, no. And barely any of them got past him. And he said, Holly, we're not going to pay a search firm $15,000 to hire someone that we're going to just get from a regular ad. And I was like, well, then why did we put an ad out? And he said, well, because we have to. And I said, oh, but I think at that point, we knew that we needed to hire someone similar to Greenspan who knew West Point, who was going to kind of help move us along. They also knew they weren't going to hire anybody internally. There was a lot of people internally and they were like, hey, we're not going to spend, again, $15,000, which was a lot, to hire someone internally. So I don't know what happened this time, but I'm assuming that, maybe they knew that Theo was a really viable candidate. And so they took all of the applications that they got and then they realized that they really had someone internally to hire. But when I was on it, they hired Kevin Anderson, Kevin was there from 2004 to 2010, I believe, right? Or
11 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, certainly a lot's changed with college sports, but one of the biggest challenges is the NIL. The fact that we don't have NIL money, trying to continue to have competitive sports programs when these kids are not going to get paid. And the other thing is, what I've also come to understand is that one thing that we actually do have that attracts maybe high caliber athletes that maybe got overlooked in the recruiting process is you've got this national platform, you got the Army Navy game. And so, Kyle and Claire have a classmate that played all the way up to the Army Navy game and then left this past year. I forget his name. It was
He's the running back.
Yeah.
Udo
or something.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Udo, yeah.
Udo, I think. Yeah. So I guess that kid. What Claire said was he's a great kid. He was a great teammate. He talked to his classmates. Said, I love you guys, but I got to pursue my dream, and this is an opportunity, and he moved on. But apparently, he didn't come back after the Army Navy game. He just left.
And now he's at Arizona State. Yeah.
Didn't even do his final tees, but whatever.
And the interesting thing for football, someone told me this, and I guess it's a big recruiting tool for them, is the fact that, especially for the kids, well, they know 5 years out where the Army Navy game is going to be played. The majority of college players, vast majority of college players, never get to play in an NFL stadium. And so on our football team, like, they got to play in 4 different, if they came in the last couple of years, they get to play in 4 different NFL stadiums. And someone said that's a huge recruiting tool for our football team. I thought that was kind of interesting.
What?
Because kids are shallow, they don't care.
I've heard Mike Buddy give this talk, and I'm sure that Theo will do the same thing, saying, like, my first job is to recruit people to become Army officers and who want to play sports. And so he did a really good job presenting about how we recognize we are not in the business of putting people into professional sports. There's, a few that get to do that every decade, but we are bringing people in to be Army officers, and that is the number one priority for this institution. And Theo, who is his understudy, hopefully will continue to have that same mindset, right?
Absolutely. He's already met with the staff and faculty. He's, like I said, has made his way around to numerous events already. And he's super excited to be the guy. And he loves West Point. He's a Stony Brook guy from Long Island.
Syracuse.
No, he went to Syracuse, but he's from Long Island.
Oh yeah,
he's from Long Island or Stony Point. No, yeah, Stony Brook. Yeah, he's from Stony Brook. And so I think he might settle down here. This he might plant some roots and be here for a while. I really do.
What's also very impressive is he's finishing up, he's basically all but dissertation for his PhD in education leadership.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah, so
Very
he's
cool.
he's got his stuff going on.
he's a go-getter.
Well, I think
And also last thing, big
well,
thing at West Point was last night, it was Brian Riley's final game at West Point. They still are in the playoffs, so they'll play Niagara in the playoffs, I guess, next weekend or 2 weeks from now. But for him to step down, it means that for the last 75 years, Army hockey has had a Riley at the helm as the head coach. 75 years.
Yeah.
They said together the Riley dad and two sons have accounted for 1,055 wins.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible.
So that must have been a pretty big event that he was there for the game. Did you guys go to the game?
Yeah,
we did. Yeah,
yeah.
He luckily he got to win on or end on a winning note. They beat American International in overtime, so he got the win.
And it was very cool. So one of his sons, Jack, named after his dad, is coaching with him right now. He's an assistant coach at Army. His other son, Brendan, is an assistant coach at AIC. So he was coaching with one son and coaching against the other son in his last game. Yeah, so pretty cool.
That is really cool. Well, we're getting towards the end of our time here. I want to thank you for stepping in here in the last minute and kind of fill in the slot. And we are going to get Fitzy on another date, so that's going to be great. Before we close, though, let's close with some West Point trivia. Right? All
right.
Holly, I think you could write all of these things, but
no, I don't. I don't know.
I'm going to give you some easy ones first, right? All right. So the first, what percentage of teachers are military officers and what percent are civilian at West Point today?
That's 80-20. Well, I don't know what it said. That was designed to be 80-20. Right now, it's more like 70-30, but it was designed when it was originally designed, it was supposed to be 80-20.
All right. I'm gonna give you credit for that. It's 75-25.
Okay. So it's actually 70-30, but
okay. All right. This is another easy one. What is the largest piece of Mark, you should get this one. What is the largest piece of granite turned in the Western Hemisphere?
Battle Monument.
Battle Monument, of course, Battle Monument. All right. That one's easy.
Come on, everybody knows that.
That was in our bugle notes.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, some of these are bugle note stuff. Okay. You should get this one too, Mark, because your admissions, all right? International cadet admissions are capped at how many?
Per year?
I want to say
per year.
Per year?
Hold on.
Man.
Well, hold on.
I want to say 30. Am I off?
No, this must be for the whole academy. This got to be for the whole academy. What's the international cadet admissions for the total?
Yeah, maybe I thought 30 was the number.
Probably like 100.
It says 60.
60? All right.
Huh.
Yeah, I should know that because that was my additional duty.
Mark brought in the international cadets and he worked in admissions.
Yeah.
So we sponsored any crazy stories of international cadets? Like anybody show up and they had no idea what they're getting into, or?
Well, yeah, they all knew. I don't know if any of them knew what they were getting into.
They barely spoke English.
Right.
There was one from St. Lucia. I was like, I want to sponsor him because maybe we can go to his house in the spring break.
Well, we did host a Costa Rican.
We sponsored 2 of the Costa Rican exchange, and their parents, we got very close with their parents, and they would come often. The one kid, Bernardo Arce, his dad was class of 77 from West Point. And then he was the Secretary of State or the equivalent of Secretary of State of Costa Rica, because the president of Costa Rica was it Figueres, who was class of 79 from West Point.
Yeah, you see some legacies going on with some of these.
Well, speaking of diversity of our OGRAB podcast guests, that's one experience I haven't gotten yet is an international cadet. So I do have a line into a couple that I'm gonna get to after this. We haven't had that experience. We've had every experience I think I can imagine. We had prepsters, we have December grads, we had
who was our classmate from Cameroon?
Yeah, Sam Talbot, right?
Yeah, Cameroon. I think they didn't win the World Cup, but they might have made it to the Sweet 16 or so. It was just a really huge deal. And I
Yeah.
remember him celebrating. Oh no, not Mohawk. No,
Mohawk.
I don't know if you want to get Mohawk on or
You
not.
know what? You know what else, Jamie? It would be interesting, and Mark, we might be able to track him down because Mark roomed with one of the Zoomy exchange cadets. You don't have any of the Service Academy exchange cadets.
No, I had Chuck Pochet.
Oh, what, did he come for just a semester?
No,
I'm
oh,
talking-
you mean, oh, somebody came into here.
For one semester.
Oh, yeah.
He was an
I
Air
don't know
Force
if we have
cadet.
enough connection though to really be able
Well,
to
Mark roomed with Mike Doyle.
Mike Doyle, yeah.
He was the Air Force.
really.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was the guy like completely clueless or what?
He was squared away. I mean, he was a really smart guy, obviously, or he wouldn't have been in the program. But he was a Long Island guy, so that's one of the reasons why he came. So I think he could be closer to home, at least for a semester. But I tell you what, I don't think he really understood the how much more strict and disciplined West Point was compared to Air Force. I can't, we'd go to bed at night and he'd be like, man, you guys are crazy. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And I'm just like, what do you mean? That's what we do. We're in the Army. I mean, that's, we're cadets. I mean, shit, so I think back then, especially our Air Force was probably a lot more lax than they are today. Oh, by the way, today, for those that don't know, they are really starting to hammer down on the Air Force cadets out there. Air Force they're going draconian out there.
Air Force firsties don't even have to spend the night in the barracks.
Well, they do now.
They didn't for a while. They didn't have to spend the night in the barracks. Because they didn't have a TAPS for the firsties. They just had to be at first formation at 6:30. Now most of them so if they had a girlfriend, they could just go and live with their girlfriend.
What?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So now, so you say they're cracking down on that now?
Oh yeah.
They brought in a whole new leader team now, and they're cracking down.
And the Air Force, the Air Force cadets are like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
The new SecDef, the new chairman, Joint Chiefs, Raising King. He's probably going to be all over that.
Yeah.
Well, you know how cadets, when they get into West Point, they have to take the fitness assessment, right? The candidate fitness assessment, CFA. And if you remember, because Claire and Kyle had to video their pull-ups and video their push-ups. Well, we're doing away with that now. I guess it's, we've realized that we don't need to do that. It's a waste of time. So we're doing away with it. But guess what Air Force is doing? They're just starting it. They're going to it now. So they're going to start doing video and pull-ups and push-ups. Yeah.
So you made me think about something. Claire sent me a video of an Air Force cadet this year, like right around Army Air Force Week. He got one of those paragliders and took off from Elot. Did you see these pictures? He went all over West Point, all over the plane in a paraglider, shut down the airspace for all of Hudson Valley.
Wow.
And it came down on the plane and was met by the MPs with sirens going and got arrested. That's a pretty cool spirit mission.
That's a very cool spirit mission.
Yeah. I got the video. I sent it to you.
I've never seen that.
I sent it to my F1 Fire chat. Everybody agreed it was well worth it. It was like, it's a great story.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
We were able to see, speaking of F1, when we went down to Sanibel Island a couple weeks ago, we saw Russ and Libby, and then Noreen Darcy too. We had a great dinner.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yep.
That's great. I love them. Yeah, we had I missed it. We did a Friar Palooza get together this past year for the Florida game, and they had a great time. All right, so I'm gonna give you one more or two more questions, and that's it.
All right.
But I got a whole stack of them. This is a tough one. This is which plebe was presented the Medal of Honor for gallantry during the Boxer Rebellion?
I have no idea.
Yeah, this is very, very eclectic. Cadet Calvin Titus was awarded the Medal of Honor by President Teddy Roosevelt on 11 June 1902 for his courage during the Battle of Peking, where he was the first soldier to scale the wall of the city.
Wow.
So plebe got the Medal of Honor. Can you imagine a plebe I mean, it's one thing for a plebe to come in with a combat patch and Ranger tab, but if
Yeah.
you're trying to
Medal of
hate
Honor,
somebody who's
yeah.
a Medal of Honor recipient,
Jamie, I'm reading the book The Last Goat that is about back in the 1800s, all the guys who were the goats, and there's all it's a great book. It's a deep book, but if you like West Point, and they go in where there were back then there wasn't age restrictions. So you would have people coming into West Point having just fought in the Indian Wars, and they came in at like 32 years old, and they were older than the commandant because it was like a weird structure. And there's this one story of where the cadet and the commandant were fighting over the same woman, and the cadet went in and put the commandant in a headlock.
oh my
I mean,
God.
it's crazy what used to happen. I was reading some of it to Kyle, and he's like, "What?" And then the whole eggnog riots. They talk about that in this book, like at length. So you hear everything that happened with the eggnog riot. So it's pretty interesting.
That's pretty cool. Well, I'm gonna save these for a future date.
Yep.
Maybe we should turn this into a drinking game. You know, we
Yeah.
can at Westy's. We'll do it at Westy's. So
There you
Yes,
go.
we'll do it at West.
trivia
That's
night.
it. That's
Yeah.
it. Trivia night. I like it.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I'm gonna stop the live feed. You guys can stick around, and then we'll let the credits roll out. Thank you for everybody
All
who
right.
joined
Go
us
Army.
Yeah.
on the Old Grad podcast. Go Army, beat Navy.
Beat
Yeah.
Stop the
Navy.
live feed.
Let's go.